Grandmaster Peter Heine Nielsen has been the main coach of Magnus Carlsen for more than a decade.
I am still the active coach of Magnus Carlsen, who is, in my opinion, clearly the best chess player in the world. And I don't want to sound I'm not committed to his career because I am.
Before that, he coached Vishy Anand, helping him win 4 World Chess Championship titles.
I got all Vishy's files because he thought, okay, I think we both assumed we're gonna work together forever, more or less, in a way that he kept on winning matches.
In this episode, we talk about Magnus, the future of chess, and many other exciting topics.
To say classical chess is dead is too strong, and you can also see that the young players are evolving it.
We also debate chess politics, especially the sanctions on Russian chess players.
It sends the signal that our government, our army can bomb civilians without consequences.
Do not miss our Blitz game at the end.
You're playing 2 knight c3 generally,
Yeah.
followed by d4.
I like the Magnus Sicilian. Peter, thank you so much for being here. I'm honored to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks a lot for the invitation.
I have lots of topics to talk to you about, and my audience also had many questions, snowed me under their questions. But first of all, let's talk about how you view yourself. So you are, many say, the most elite, the most prestigious coach in the world. You were coach and second to Anand and now to Magnus. Does it feel like you've accomplished everything in your field, or are there any challenges left for you?
If you ask if I'm still very ambitious, the question is probably no in that sense. I mean, I understand that the main part of my career is over, but I am still the active coach of Magnus Carlsen, who is, in my opinion, clearly the best chess player in the world. And I don't want to sound I'm not committed to his career because I am. I would rather say that I'm adapting to his attitude as a player these days. But I'm spending all my work time on thinking about how to aid his career and what his needs are and such. So I still consider myself very much an active second. But of course, I'm trying to adapt to the player I'm working for. And in general, it's always been a principle that, especially with Magnus, I shouldn't have any ambitions on his behalf. So I would rather say that I try to fit to his level of ambition at his point of his career. So I think you are right. I mean, well, if we will go into details, there is a huge difference from me spending 3 months in a row in a sort of cold place with Team Vishy, which was fascinating, preparing for a world championship match, or what I do for Magnus now. But I still think as a professional, I'm trying to help the player I'm so lucky to work for on the premises they want.
And you're currently working just with Magnus. You don't have any other people you're working with?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, for the last, it's probably more than 13 years by now, I've just been employed by Magnus as a full-time position. And, well, of course, also such generally comes with exclusivity in the way that, well, if you work for the world's best player, for a start, he deserves all your attention, but also chess is, it is knowledge-based and there is certain secrets. So, if you start working for others, it doesn't really work out too well. Well, of course, I'm married to a person who used to be an elite chess player. And of course, I would help her a bit and such. And even when I worked for Vishy, I was still very friendly with Magnus when, he was quite younger. And I would also help him a bit on the side. But, apart from a bit of friendly advice here and there, I would say all my professional engagements is fully for Magnus, obviously.
That's so interesting. I've been thinking about this. What would happen if, for example, Magnus, retired completely? I hope he doesn't do so. And you started working for some other elite player who's currently, let's say, top 10, how big of a boost right away would he get if you were allowed to share some secrets of Magnus with him?
I think that is very much diminishing. I mean, earlier it would be a bigger thing because, well, let's say if we go back to when I worked for Vishy, I mean, at that point, there was still a lot of secrets within the chess world in terms of chess engines was worse, hardware was worse. You could still uncover new ideas and have secrets. And of course, I mean, having all the notes and all the work for several World Championship matches would have quite an effect. This is very much a diminishing thing because these days, chess engines are so strong that even you don't really need them to run them on supercomputers. You can have the newest version of Stockfish or the previous one or Leela or whatever. It doesn't really matter. They are more or less giving facts, and you can see in top tournaments, are they decided by big novelties? Not really anymore. So the kind of work I am doing for Magnus is, well, for a start, it's impossible to find big novelties, but also the work is very much based on this is supposed to be suitable to Magnus's skill level. But I don't think that many other has Magnus's skill level, sort of. So I don't know how useful it would be. What perhaps could be helpful, of course, is the experience I have in terms of, let's say, World Championship matches and such. But then also we are talking about a very small market of players. But also, I mean, my attitude for the moment is not what's going to happen in the future. I would like the present to last as long as possible. I mean, well, I think most people would like to see Magnus play chess as long as possible. And I even have a financial interest in that, but also a creative one. So my attitude is really that I will try and do that as long as hopefully Magnus wants me as his coach, and what happens afterwards happens afterwards. But to answer also this technical part of your question, I think that would have mattered considerably quite some years back, but it's very much diminishing these days. There is not so much hidden knowledge anymore that has to do a lot with technology advances.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for this detailed answer. I wonder how it worked when you left Team Vishy and went to Team Magnus. Back then, the knowledge was more substantial, but you probably had some agreements, what you can and what you cannot share. How did it work?
That is, was a much more relevant and complicated situation. I mean, in general, at some point, I think in general, Vishy would not share his live works with all his seconds. He will have specific databases for specific matches where we, of course, will share an enormous amount of information. But in the end, basically, I got all Vishy's files because he thought, okay, I think we both assumed we're going to work together forever, more or less, in a way that, but he kept on winning matches. And at some point, we split up, or rather I moved to work for Magnus, and other seconds also moved elsewhere. And that, of course, is a complicated situation. The way we solved it, and also, when I moved to work for Magnus, I had several conversations with Vishy, and it was generally on a, let's say, friendly basis. Vishy is, both very decent and clever person. He understood my motives. He also understand that, I have a family, and I was younger than him and have a lifetime to support myself, and it was a reasonable choice. But we basically agreed that as Magnus was his potential main rival for the next upcoming World Championship. So when I signed a contract with Magnus, in the contract, we agreed that for the 2013 World Championship match, should it be against Magnus, I would have to stay neutral. And that is basically what happened. So when, I was hopefully helpful for Magnus in the candidates tournament where he qualified to play Vishy. But when he played him in 2013, I was completely neutral. I can take no credit at all for that match because I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Magnus had a completely different team and players helping him. And there is some rumors here and there that I would still be helping Magnus, but that's not true. I was generally just on vacation for several months, and I remember when they started the World Championship match, I was happily out golfing and such. So that was a bit strange. What of course made it even stranger was that to everybody's surprise, including Vishy's, he qualified for the 2014 World Championship matches. And there, I think, I was the commentator when he qualified, and I think, we just both smiled and understood that, sure, I could be neutral in one match, but there is a limit within reason. So there I was actually, what is it called? I was the second of Magnus and was leading his team in the second World Championship match with Vishy. But at that point, Vishy had built a new team. They had new notes from the previous match, which I had no knowledge about. So generally speaking, that was quite fair. But of course, I would have considerable knowledge about Vishy as a person, as a player, and that could perhaps have helped Magnus a bit. But I think that, also reading Vishy's biography, he didn't have much belief that he was actually able to beat Magnus. And I think history also proved that in a way. So I don't think it became a major collision. But of course, this is a problem in the chess world that while in other sports, perhaps we will have some kind of knowledge. Here it becomes more like having sensitive data, like you work for a company and you have access to the inventions and, the actual papers. So, yeah, that is a complex situation, but something people has to solve along the way, right?
Did you know that Peter Heine Nielsen can become not just Magnus's coach, but your coach as well? It's true. If you buy his online course, Chess Structures, a Grandmaster Guide on Chessable or Chess.com courses. I've just started studying this course and it's amazing. Learning pawn structures helps you read the board and come up with a plan. You always have a strategic compass when you know the pawn structure. You know the typical pawn breaks, ideal piece placement, and general plans for each side. What Peter Heine did is he took a classic chess book, Chess Structures, by Grandmaster Mauricio Flores Rios, and analyzed it himself in 2024 with modern engines, using lots of instructive games and positions in all kinds of pawn structures. Isolated pawns, hanging pawns, French positions, Slav positions, Benoni, Rui Lopez, King's Indian defense. These are just some of the pawn structures that Peter analyzes. There are more than 30 hours of video of Peter discussing those structures and positions. I'm sure that by the end of this course, I will become a much better chess player with better understanding of the game, and so will you. It's good for all levels. Also, exercises for this course are divided into various levels of difficulty. And the best part, you can try the course for free on chess.com courses using the link in the description. Also, Diamond members get 30% off the full course if they choose to buy it. All links are in the description. Check them out. Thanks for sharing the story. I've also recorded podcast episodes with some of other members of Team Magnus. You were mentioned a lot in them. There was Jan Gustafsson,
so.
Daniel Dubov, Jordan Van Forest. So I spoke with them as well about the preparation, those camps that you guys had before the matches that Magnus played. How does Magnus's team work now that he practically quit classical or semi-quit and he focuses on chess 960? How big of a team do you guys have? Without divulging any top secret information, can you share anything about it?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here smiling. Well, you seem to be under the impression he has a team. That would be news to me. I think it's just me as far as I know. So, no, you can laugh, but teams are mainly surrounded of world championship matches and such. And then later, we also, quite often we would keep Freycinet employed to help me during tournaments. But in recent years, he hasn't. So, he will travel with his wife and his father and now his son, hopefully. But in terms of chess work, it has just been me for quite a while. So, if we were, I could be bluffing you, but I don't think I am. So, no. I think it comes a bit with the challenges there is in a way, and this has worked quite okay. And normally World Championship matches will be when you bring a huge team together. But having just 1 second is not that surprising these days. I would say.
Yeah, but it's logical, yeah, considering the fact that Magnus is not playing a World Championship cycle currently. But it's just you right now who's doing both the chess 960 work and classical chess work and rapid and blitz work.
Yeah, I mean, of course, chess 960 is a bit different, but the others, I mean, well, it is the same starting position, right? So if it's a rapid or a classical or blitz, I mean, it is the same kind of preparation. Of course, you will tune it to the certain events, but well, Magnus is not playing that much, and also, I mean, the requirements are less these days, and I think both in terms of for in general, but also what Magnus needs. So, well, of course, now when you ask me and look like it's strange, I get a bit nervous. But in general, I mean, the results are not too bad. So we haven't changed that. But of course, I mean, Magnus is friendly with a lot of players, and I'm sure he absorbs some knowledge and novelties from others. I mean, also, well, there's many nice things with being the best player in the world, but also people tend to want to impress you. So I'm sure he gets some input here and there. But I mean, for tournaments and such these days, it's just me traveling with him if he asks me to do that. Yes.
You said that your work adapts to the needs of your boss, so to say, your client.
Yeah.
And when something changes, like Magnus is more interested in freestyle chess, for example, you probably do more work with that. Can you give let's say, a summary of what was changing over the last, let's say, year? Like, did your work routine change significantly because of Magnus's change in preferences in what he wants to do with chess?
Not playing World Championship matches is I mean, by far a margin, the biggest change. I mean, that is what really makes a difference. World Championship matches is an enormous workload, because then, you are facing an opposing team who will spend half a year with just one target, and that's gonna be this match, right? And this, of course, you will have to match in terms of manpower and ideas and so on and so forth. As long as you only have to prepare for tournaments, this becomes considerably less. And I think there, it doesn't matter much if it's classical, rapid, and blitz. I mean, you have to do some preparation. You need to have some kind of ideas, but the level of depth drops dramatically from World Championships. Well, you can bluff quite more in the sense that, well, maybe you don't need to have a full repertoire because, well, things will happen anyway, and you will be able to live with it in a way. So I will say World Championship matches and non-World Championship matches is the big difference. I mean, World Championship matches, we talk several camps during Vishy times, month-length camps, Magnus slightly less, but also, let's say, World Championship matches, I will be responsible for having a coherent repertoire, and probably even layered repertoire. So let's say one opening collapses, we have backups and so on and so forth. You need to build a strong team who is very capable of adapting during the match. I mean, this is actually real and systematic work. When Magnus is playing other tournaments, it's more like, let's try and find some ideas that can work for a game here and there, let's say. So it strikes me as completely uncomparable. And now, well, you bring up freestyle. I mean, freestyle is more, well, you can argue that the preparation also is freestyle. You can more or less do what you want, but you try to look at some patterns, you look at some, analyze some games, and you try to understand the game better. I assume, like, well, this is how people would look at chess 60 years ago or 100 years ago. I mean, you're basically trying to improve your understanding rather than nowadays you're trying to ambush people with preparation. I mean, in freestyle chess, I mean, there's no such thing as opening preparation, at least not with a successful degree, because the chances of getting that position is like 0.1%, right? So it's more that you try to understand some things and you try to be excited about it in a way. And it's been fascinating. I mean, maybe it's been a year and a half ago now, but there I spent some months, trying just to improve my understanding of freestyle chess, and that was very interesting. But I mean, it's completely uncomparable to a World Championship match where you are trying to mathematically map out certain openings, while there you are sort of creatively trying to understand the subject. It's basically uncomparable.
Mm-hmm. Anish Giri once said that he would require 1 year to create like a repertoire, at least a short repertoire for all 960 positions. You guys didn't do that, right?
No, we don't have a repertoire. I mean, there is public files with the top computer line in each position. And, well, I have also created that, but that's just an automated thing. But it's not something you can remember. Or also you should remember. I mean, just take the standard position you know. I mean, what would you do with a computer file who said that, D4 is slightly better than E4 and that's it? It makes absolutely no sense, right? You have to have an idea about how pieces are developing and such, right? So I think that's the whole point of freestyle, that in the current classical chess, in the opening phase, it's clear that people are desperately trying to remember their analysis, while in freestyle chess, you are trying to think based on principles, more or less from move one. So that is a huge difference. I mean, I think I posted on Twitter as a joke that I have made a repertoire for, I forgot, white or black in a certain position. But that was just because that is perhaps the only of all the freestyle positions where black is critically in danger, and I thought it was interesting to map out that. But mainly, as it is with Twitter, it's mainly jokes, but with a bit of truth in it. And I am sort of writing on a manuscript for a freestyle book at the moment, with general sort of thoughts and ideas, basically trying to share the knowledge we have accumulated. And this was one of the sort of, well, I wanted to make a chapter about that, and then I thought I would just write about it on Twitter. But I think for a start, it's an enormous amount of work to make a relevant repertoire for 960 positions. But I also think it's impossible to remember and not useful to remember, because while even if you could remember the first move in all positions, it would have absolutely no relevance. The problem is in classical when we can remember lines basically to its conclusion. And that, of course, you cannot do for 960 positions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you don't think that with the current propensity of chess players to learn enormous amounts of information, that they cannot learn at least some information on each 960 position to gain some advantage? Not the first move, but maybe first move and some ideas.
Well, first move and some ideas you can and should, but I wouldn't say that becomes remembering. It becomes general understanding. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is definitely positions where, Magnus has in games where I thought, haven't I looked at this before? But then you start getting unsure. Hang on, was the rook on A1 and B1? And sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's completely changing everything. And that is how the game should be, in my opinion. But I don't think that any of the top players is just, what is it? Terminator style, that, okay, this is position 937. I have to do this and that. I don't think that while chess players has incredibly strong memory in such things, I don't think you can remember it to that extent. I could be proven wrong, but while Magnus has been extremely successful in chess, in freestyle chess, I think it's due to his better understanding. And of course, well, he's the best player anyway, but I think this one strengthens his strengths and kills off the openings. But there is no game I have any recollection of Magnus winning based on specific preparation we have. Mm-hmm. Not even close.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for the clarification. I wanted to ask about how you spend your time these days working for Magnus. So what is the split between openings, between some, exercises for Magnus to keep him in shape? Can you share some info on that?
I haven't given Magnus any exercises for 10 years. I think he keeps in shape, but playing whatever tournament he feels like online, or thinking about, he's watching a lot of stuff. So he will also think about that. So I think he keeps himself in shape like that. But well, you believe that there is some kind of structured training, which there is not. But, well, of course, if there is something that I find very interesting, I will, drop him a note on the chat platform we are using. Or I remember when suddenly neural network happening, I mean, AlphaZero and then Leela, there was a lot of new chess knowledge in terms of positional understanding would slightly change and such. And I would try to incorporate that to opening files. But this idea of, a lesson or even a camp doesn't exist much in that term. Probably difficult for others to copy that, but he seems to keep himself in shape by playing, I guess it's Title Tuesday, Freestyle Friday, or whatever they're called. Now there is a tournament on Wednesday. I'm not fully up to speed with what name that is and such. And it seems to work for him. And that's, the kind of coach I am is that I have worked for two players in my life, Vishy and Magnus, and I started to work for them when they were the best player in the world. So it's never been my job to help players improve or to try and do things differently unless they wanted to do differently. I'm working with players who is the best in the world, and I'm there in a supporting role to try and help them win some tournaments. With Vishy, we were doing some exercises and such, and I would have some database I bought from Doretsky with high quality exercises. And that is great, but that has not been the focal point. I'm brought in to help people who is already extremely accomplished, talented, to win some titles, right? So, I have not much experience with that. I'm not pushing them to do it. I mean, if Magnus would ask me to send exercises, I would do that, but he barely never has.
So no exercises, just opening work, or what else?
Generally opening work, right? I mean, well, he has a tournament or a game or whatever, and he expects that I will send an email with the ideas we have discussed, from a couple of minutes to a couple of hours before the game start, based on how serious the event is in a way. And then he might open the email, he might not, and that's more or less it in a way. I'm generally left very freely to look in certain directions, but of course, I've worked for him for 13 years and, fully for 13 years and know him from before. So I have an idea of his preferences. And of course, we will talk a little bit about what to do. World Championship matches, we would have a longer conversation, but longer conversation still counted in, 1-digit hours. We're not talking about a long process like that. So basically, he likes to stay outside of it and have options. And, it might sound weird to you, but for most World Championships games, I would not be fully sure which move he would play as white. We deliver him options. Typically, I think in recent matches he would play, I forgot with Caruana, he was basically playing e4, d4, and c4 in an equal ratio of 2 each. And with Nepham, I forgot fully how it ended, but a little bit similar in a way. I guess there was some knight f3, some d4, and some e4. And it's not that we have a coherent strategy. It's more that we provide Magnus with options and he chooses something. This ends up looking quite randomized. And I think Magnus said, partly joking, but again with some truth in it, that if I'm capable of surprising my seconds, most likely I'll also surprise my opponents. And I'm not sure that's the best strategy, but it's quite reasonable. I think also on the Rogan podcast, he sort of said that for quite some years we have actually rolled a dice before many games just to decide which opening. So, I will get the results of the dice rolls in the evenings, and the next day I will prepare some file for whatever stupid opening that is. And that has worked surprisingly well. And I think some players could be marginally helped by it, but of course it works very well with Magnus, who doesn't care so much about openings and can more or less play everything without being fully into details. But it keeps the opponent guessing. It also demotivates them a bit, because why should they prepare heavily if they understand that it's going to be a bit random what the opponent is doing? But also I think it fits into the modern Entian situation where you can make most openings quite playable, and it's not so much about deep surprise, sort of knowledge, but having some kind of knowledge these days. So it is pretty strange in that way. But, well, again, I try to adapt to the needs of the player, especially because I've worked with the best players in the world, but also because chess is a very individual sport. It's important to understand that while I normally is the coach, it's not the coaching situation as in a football team. I mean, a football team, you will have Pep Guardiola telling world elite players, do this, do that. This is not how it works here. I mean, you are a second, so you will try to help implementing the wills and ideas of your player. But the one who is sort of mentally in charge, who takes decision, who is the CEO, is very much the player. I would assume that's the same in, say, tennis or golf, right? You have someone who will help you and give advice and do kind of the work you don't want to do yourself. But when it comes to decision times on strategy, is Djokovic not taking his own decision, or is he just doing what his coach says? I really assume that he believes he is the biggest expert and takes the decisions. But I have no clue, but I assume it's like that.
Wow, this is all very fascinating. I remember I watched a video series, it's still ongoing, where Dubov in Russian on Levitov Chess channel explains some behind the scenes at your guys' preparation camps with Magnus for the Fabi match, and the story about the various openings that Dubov was preparing and were not used, or were used at random. That was fun.
I can understand his frustration in a way as well. I was probably more used to it like that, but I mean, it worked out quite well. I haven't seen the episodes, but these were interesting times, and of course, it's difficult to respond to Dubov anecdotes when I don't know them in fully, but I'm sure they were entertaining, and also we had our fights in an interesting way, but I think that's how it should be when you try to do high-level performance in a way. But anyway, I mean, if I don't know what he said, it's difficult for me to respond to. Right?
Yeah, but basically many things that you said as well. Do you miss those times? Those intense training camps, preparation for the high-stakes matches?
Of course you do, to a certain extent. I mean, it is fascinating times, but of course, now I have 2 kids and I'm older in a way. It's also like, that was a very interesting time, and I'm very happy I experienced it, but I really enjoy what I'm doing with Magnus now as well. I didn't sort of enlarge a lot of that, but I did actually stop working for Vishy, and so did Kasimjanov. And, I mentioned that Vishy kept winning too much. Of course, that is the aim, but perhaps wasn't the expectation. And it's like, when you suddenly have done... How many matches did Vishy won? 3 matches? I mean, it's 3 matches with half a year preparation for the 2012 match with Gelfand. We literally had a camp starting 15th of Jan and ending 15th of April, right? 3 months in a row with, 1 free day a week, but else it was like chess for 14 days, six days a week. That is incredibly fascinating, but perhaps also not something you would like to do for the rest of your life, right? I mean, so yes, I miss it. We had great fun. I mean, of course, the intensity of a playoff or preparing for a game 12 for a world championship match, it is things that in general you cannot get enough of in a way. But if you look at it as a whole package, perhaps it's great you had your time. And now, I mean, it can sound unserious to you, but for me, actually delving into freestyle chess has been very fascinating, and being part of preparing a system where we actually roll a dice to choose openings and try to implement it successfully. It's also a very interesting experiment. So you get to do some things that are quite interesting. But, of course, I love chess openings. I love analyzing them, and that I've been able to do in a variety of ways. But, I'm 52 years old now, and such. I'm obviously in the latter parts of my active career. So I think I'm the spot I'm supposed to be. Not that I necessarily get to choose, but of course, you will always, I mean, the World Cup is happening right now. In 2011, I went to the 4th round. I also miss being there because it was a fantastic experience. But I think also, well, life develops as it is, and things are as they are. But yeah, of course I look a little bit jealous and curious about it, but also I don't miss perhaps being away from the family for 3 months. But when you see a World Championship match, it's always very interesting. It was interesting the last time. You can see how Gajewski and the team he is leading is perhaps doing things we are doing, but in an even bigger extreme. You will see, Gukesh pushing weird ideas to the maximum. They're really prepared surprises everywhere and very weird surprises. So they were doing like what we were trying to do to control the narrative in terms of we spring the surprise before them, but they are, doing it in even more modern style where their ideas becomes more dubious, but which is probably necessary to spring them first and such. And I follow these things into detail, but, I perhaps miss the creative part, but I don't miss, the lack of sleep or the nervousness or the 3 months away from home. So it's a mixed bag. You will always feel nostalgic, but then you start to think about it and think maybe things are as they should be.
What do you think about Gukesh, by the way, and his future? Do you see him as developing
the future,
into...
He is the present, right? He's the world champion. He's an interesting player. I don't think he's the best chess player in the world. I think that's Magnus, and probably there is a couple of others who is also stronger than Gukesh. But well, that is not his fault. That you're not the best player in the world, that only one person can be, right? He's very impressive and very interesting in many ways, and of course also very vulnerable and unimpressive in many ways. But that goes for most sports persons. He has a very courageous attitude, and he keeps pushing it to the extreme. So, he's an interesting player, but right now there is no evidence he's going to be the dominant player of his generation. And also nothing wrong with that. I think even, maybe at that age, it was clear it was going to be Magnus, but go back a couple of years younger, it wasn't in a way. So he's interesting. And, he's interesting in an opening perspective, which I care a lot about. He's really trying to push things. He also has a very sportsman-like attitude to chess. It's not this kind of, chess is art, chess is a piece of academical work. He's a sportsman. He's trying to win, and he puts his opponent under tremendous pressure, even at a huge risk, and that I respect a lot, in a way. But it's perhaps also exploitable, I think Magnus is exploiting it quite well when they play, although, of course, there was an accident the last time they faced, but it doesn't change the overall picture for me. But, he's a very interesting player, and it's a huge sporting performance that he won the candidates and then the World Championship match in a way. I don't think he has the strength to do it all the time. So, the word is not luck. It is that he had a good performance at the right time, I would say. So he's an interesting player, but so is Anand and Erik Eisi, just to name his two compatriots. And to say who is the strongest player between these three, it's difficult because it feels like, this month, this year, it's clearly Gukesh. No, then it's clearly Prague, or hang on, now Erik Eisi is the highest rated. And I think things are as they should be in a way. But I have a lot of respect for the way Gukesh is doing it. He's a great sort of sporting person. But of course, I stand by that he's not the strongest chess player in the world. But, only one person can be that, right?
Yeah. Do you think there will be soon a player who will dominate like Magnus did?
I doubt it, to be honest. And for a start, I think it becomes more and more difficult to do it in many ways. Someone like Kasparov would also dominate by having better preparation and better understanding of openings, but that's more or less impossible these days. It goes a bit in waves like that. I think in general chess has been quite spoiled with having these players who stand out. You have a Fischer poster, a Fischer Spassky poster sort of in the background, and Fischer is the one who was clearly the better, although for a very short period in time, so it's a little bit unreasonable. I mean, if you compare him to Magnus and Kasparov, of course, Fischer, you could argue, would shine even brighter, but he was also allowed to very much choose his time and do it there. I mean, Spassky, it took me a while to realize how strong he actually was. At some point, I had to comment games for a book between Spassky and Larsen, and I was incredibly impressed with Spassky, right? But to say that Spassky was dominant of his generation would also be unreasonable in a way. So, I mean, we had Fischer briefly, and then Kasparov and Magnus, who completely dominated their generations. And it could happen again, I would guess. But I still think the sort of technical developments in our games in terms of preparation and such will make it somewhat more unlikely we will find someone who is that dominant. But most predictions tend to end up sounding rather stupid later. So generally, I will try to be cautious there.
Mm-hmm. So the neural networks have been the great equalizer, so to say.
To a certain extent. I mean, well, it's always been the case. But, I mean, well, when I started working with Magnus, it felt like you had access to a mind with superior understanding of chess than everything else. I mean, well, sure, you could ask Stockfish or whatever, Ripka, who was the strongest engine, but they would especially be very strong tactically, and of course, good strategically, but sometimes you would feel Magnus would sense it better. Perhaps he still does, and maybe he doesn't feel the need to share his every thought with his second. That would be quite reasonable. But neural networks has become so strong positionally and strategically that we are not used to before. I mean, one of my hobbies at some point was playing Blitz games with Leela, but disabling its ability to calculate. And that means it can calculate literally half a move ahead. So I would win games where I just take its queens, or it allows mate in one. But it would outplay me strategically so hard, it felt painful. I mean, that, again, we'd have this sort of, I mean, we're used to computers beat humans because they're better at calculating. But this one was just outplaying me because it understands chess better than me strategically. And it was actually quite an interesting experiment. I think also at some point I had a training camp for in Norway for young players, but we are talking about Howell and others. We are talking 2-6+ players. And I thought, let me talk about freestyle chess. And I had them play against Leela with no calculation. And they would be completely outplayed strategically and then somehow manage to swindle it tactically. But I was trying to help them understand that how difficult it is to understand the strategies in freestyle chess. And I think they felt it very much, that while they tried to play normally, it just wasn't sufficient in a way. For me, this 2019 thing was extremely fascinating. At that point, I was a bit tired of board chess, but I thought it brought so many new ideas, but also it really helped us having an even better understanding. I mean, in 2018, had you asked me, I would have said that chess has come to the last stage of evolution. We know everything there is about openings, and we basically have perfect tools. It turned out that was far from the truth. If you ask me now, I would say exactly the same. We are at the end of evolution. We have perfect tool. We have perfect understanding. And you can argue I didn't learn from my mistakes, and you would be right. But I still think I think now it's right. I was wrong then, but I think this is the case. Well, I don't know what you think, and maybe it's also not your job to think about that. But it's hard for me to imagine that our knowledge of chess will become much stronger. Will there be new openings to develop? I don't really see that in a way and such. And, well, you can see nowadays, people have stopped caring. I mean, should we have this engine or that engine? Well, we will have all of them, but it doesn't really matter. I saw some interview with Kasimdzhanov, and he said it's like having a car, you know, you can care about having 400 or 500 horsepower, but it has absolutely no relevance for your work. And he said it's the same with engine. It doesn't matter anymore. You get something from the cloud, but it can be 96 cores or it can be 500, but you still get the same result. And I have checked this with some of our old preparation for World Championship matches. Right there, you have a hopefully elite team, else they shouldn't be there. You also have the world's best players analyzing some opening. But nowadays, you switch on the engine, and it's not like it tells me, give me a couple of minutes to evaluate. No, it gives the answer immediately, and sometimes it gives answers that we missed back then, despite trying to work very hard. So this part has evolved massively, I would say.
You often say that, for example, on your social media, that you are skeptical of the future of classical chess and advocate for example, freestyle or faster time controls. Hasn't the recent World Cup and Grand Swiss shown that there is still potential for classical chess, that there are many interesting, exciting games, and that people still manage to find some new opening ideas, maybe dubious objectively, but very playable to play for a win? What do you think about that?
You are mentioning the World Cup and the Grand Swiss, but these are events where in the beginning there is 100 games a day. I mean, and you are allowing yourself to cherry pick, well, okay, this game was interesting, that game was interesting. I would be allowed to point out that, this is the round of 16. 7 of 8 games was drawn. Some of them was drawn, by just showing, a forced preparation line. So I don't think it's reasonable to say classical is doing great by using mass events and then picking specific games. It's not criticism of you, but criticism of the thing in general, of course. I say classical chess is dead, is too strong, and you can also see that the young players are evolving it. I mean, that's what I'm perhaps praising Gukesh for and other young players, that they are adapting to the situation. So they will start, when you have the white pieces, what do you do these days? I mean, earlier you would try to play the best moves and you will get an advantage. That doesn't happen anymore. So now you're trying to come up with weird ideas. You're trying to get rather an informational advantage than an objective advantage and put pressure like that. And it is an interesting struggle, no doubt. But I still like, let's say, rapid controls more. I mean, you can see what Dubov was doing in the World Cup, right? I mean, Dubov, by many recognized as, a creative genius when it comes to opening preparation, but he basically says, I'm incapable of coming up with relevant ideas that will work in classical chess. So he's trying to hit in the shorter time controls where you can bluff considerably more. Perhaps not bluff in the true sense of playing something that's lost, but bluff in the sense that the main concept is surprise value rather than objective values in a way. And when I say I like rapid and freestyle more, it's because I think they reward skills more than classicals do, or at least the skills that I care about. I mean, let's say playing ability. In classical, it becomes too much about opening preparation, I would say, or surprise value. While in the other games, you can mainly just play and the opening phase becomes less relevant. That, of course, can feel strange as you're talking to someone whose main passion for chess is by a considerable margin the opening phase, and I have spent my whole life studying details of chess openings, and I still do. I mean, even in my spare time, I will open a chessboard and start analyzing, if I need to relax. It's a very relaxing thing for me. But no, I don't think classical chess is dead, and I think also people love classical chess. But when you're using arguments like the World Cup or what do you say?
Grand Swiss.
Grand Swiss. It is especially mass events where you choose certain games and say it's great. Well, I think 7 of 8 games would be drawn in the World Cup. And if you actually need 16 players to play at the same time just to create one game that's entertaining, that's a little bit too much. Also, we have gotten used to this in chess, but 7 of 8 games being drawn, that would not feel acceptable in any other sport than classical chess. So, I mean, you can like it or not, but my main reservation is that I think people is more or less giving up generating new opening ideas. This is perhaps only felt at the very top. Not to be critical of you, of your colleagues, but you will also see people saying, wow, amazing game, all these tactics are happening. And for me, it's just, this is Team Magnus from a World Championship match 35 years ago. Well, what is your point, right? So, people might also be excited for the wrong reasons in a way. But, I'm hoping still to have a long life. And part of things I'm looking forward to see with that is how will, opening theory develop 40 years from now. For me, it strikes me as impossible that we can refresh ourselves. And but I have been wrong before, and I have a lot of respect for what, let's say the young Indian players, each in their specific flavor, but still in the same way, managed to make chess interesting in a way. But still, I think when we talk about freestyle, it's to some extent invented by Vishy, it's advocated by Kasparov, and advocated by Magnus. If we don't think these three guys know something about chess, we're also kidding ourselves, right? I like to watch all of it, but I am skeptical that classical chess will not, eventually hit this kind of limitations. This is not a new theory, right? Capablanca was complaining about it, maybe even Lasker, I have forgotten. And it feels a bit like how I felt in 2018, that you have this idea of how chess is, and you're completely wrong. But now I feel we're actually starting to be right. It's very difficult to find relevant opening ideas, and that is a little bit of a pity, because what I very much dislike is that it becomes a rational strategy for players to spend a lot of time mapping things out mathematically, and it becomes a relevant strategy sitting before a classical game trying to memorize things. It would be much better that if we go to the game with, a little bit of preparation, but then the game is decided by two human minds who try to beat each other with, thoughts, not memorization. And that, I think we are struggling quite a bit. Even when I had to play my, good friend Jan Gustafsson in the Bundesliga here recently, right? You wake up in the morning, you heroically try to remember everything, despite you understand that there is a likelihood the game is going to be a quick draw. There is too much memorization in chess and too little over the board play, and that, I think, is the structural thing I'm talking about. It's not that I want to diss classical chess, to be honest. I think freestyle chess is a way to try and save classical chess to what it should be, but I would like it to be classical chess, that it worked. But for me, it doesn't work fully anymore, and it's something that's only gonna get worse. So there will be some kind of slow death, which everything faces, of course, in a way, right? But I think I tried to answer your question at least.
Definitely. So what's your prediction? Slow death of classical being replaced by fast time control and Fischer random freestyle chess?
The fast time control replacement has already happened. Not in the full, of course, but let's say when I worked for Vishy, fast time controls was something that you looked moderately down on, right? Vishy will win all rapid tournament, but who cares? That's not real chess in a way. And nothing wrong with that. That's how it was seen at the time. But now, for instance, World Rapid and Blitz are considered very important and relevant titles, with everybody showing up in a way. Perhaps Grishuk was one of the first to have this idea. He started saying openly, this is my priorities. I want to win these events. And this has gained in popularity. And of course, the classical world champion title is still the one that by far most people consider the most relevant. But there has been a considerable change in terms of both prestige and finances from where, it was perhaps 95%, 15 years ago. Now it's more balanced in a way. And you will see, for instance, the esports World Cup recently that was won by Magnus, but there was a lot of money at stake. And it was clear that the players felt this was an important event for Magnus, for Hikaru as well, perhaps for Firusha as well, I would say. Priority is shifting there. But of course, it's not shifting like classical chess is dead and everybody will play the other things. But it's become more legitimate in a way. And you can see also players starting to shift. Well, Grishuk perhaps the front runner, but now many others who thinks, well, classical and rapid is a completely respectable sporting career to have in a way. I don't know about Firusha nowadays. I don't know why he's not in the World Cup. Maybe he just thinks that, why should I spend 3.5 weeks for trying to desperately qualify when I can play speed chess instead? And that will seem strange to many, but, well, we should look at the priorities of the best players and judge based on that. But of course, it's not a full replacement. And while it's obvious that I really love freestyle chess, and I think that freestyle chess is specifically suitable for the classical time control, because they actually need it, because it's so difficult, and it makes it more interesting. I don't see it replacing classical chess, because it's very elitist in the term you have to be extremely good to play it well, and for spectators it's difficult to follow. I think it would technically be a better game than classical chess, but of course such things are decided by popular demand, and well, I only get to vote once, right? So it's going to be hard to change.
What do you think about the new title, by the way, the Total World Chess Championship? Do you think there is a chance that it will replace, in its importance and in its role for the international audience, the current classical title?
Most likely not, I would say. Also, it's something that, I mean, we are in the very early stages. And, well, if you remember in, I think, 2022, then suddenly the Grand Chess Tour was supposed to be a qualification for the World Championship. And I would point out that 2022 was a FIDE election year. So it's a good time to make friends. I would make that point as well, that, it's good to make some friends for FIDE when the FIDE election is coming up here soon. I think we should see it establish itself first and such. But, I mean, these kind of titles, I think what really matters is how players perceive them. And that's what you have seen with rapid chess. If players at press conferences are saying, yeah, it's only rapid, who cares, right? Why should the spectators be excited? But if you can see Magnus or others saying, okay, this has been my goal, I really want this title, and the competition feels similarly, then it starts to matter and it becomes important. And that will be the same with total chess. I mean, are the players going to embrace it, or are they just going to show up and collect the money and leave again, right? And that's too early to say. I mean, of course, it's a bit awkward that you have all the, you have classical title and you have rapid and blitz, and now you want to combine it in a certain way. It's perhaps a good idea, but you can also argue, is there sufficient funding for arranging this, and you will spread yourself too thin. In general, I might be a bit, skeptical about that, but I'm portrayed as a freestyle maniac who loves the game. And this is true now, but go back 5 years, I would say that I think, Chess 960, as we called it then, makes little sense. It's awkward. It's weird. Why should we do that? I really want to have real openings and such. So, I'm apparently capable of change. If I get, some will say, if Magnus changes, I will change. Or I will say when I get to understand it better. I mean, I think it's a good idea. And if I could choose personally, chess should not only be decided by the classical time control, but if you can make this popular, it's probably going to be difficult, but they're going to try, and it's going to be interesting to see. And if Magnus wants to compete there, I'm looking forward to being part of that if asked.
But there are currently no plans to have big teams and big training camps to prepare for Total World Chess Championship.
But that goes for everything, so that you shouldn't worry about. Big teams I've only seen for World Championship matches, and to my knowledge, no big matches is planned for Magnus, right? At some point they were talking about this match with Nakamura, but it was still supposed to, as far as I understand, to be with quicker time controls and such, right? Mm-hmm. So, no, I'm expecting to be on my own for quite a while still.
I know that you are not a spokesperson for Magnus, but I want to find out your opinion. What do you think is the probability, percentage-wise, of Magnus ever competing for the Classical World Chess Championship title again?
I would guess it's low, but it's also, Well, you are having a Fischer-Spassky poster in the background. Is that the Reykjavik match or the sort of return match many years later?
The Reykjavik match.
Yeah. But my joke a bit is that, well, history has shown that unlikely things happens later in a way, right? I assume when Magnus gives up his title, it's not something, he just decides, okay, let me do that. No, it's a life choice. I mean, he also just became a father and such, and seemed to have found, that his way of using his talent is being still the dominant player and playing events he finds interesting and such, and balancing, having a good life with sporting ambitions, which I think he's doing quite well. At the time, from when Magnus said, I'm most likely not going to defend my title until it actually was legally a fact, it was obvious for me that he meant it, while you saw for the rest of the chess world, they thought he did not mean it. But I think that's because they don't understand the stress of a world championship match, also how much physical time it takes. And it's going to sound arrogant, but to spend that much time and use your chess career on something where you, at least yourself, thinks you are such a massive favorite. I mean, before the Nepal match, some were saying, yeah, Magnus is the favorite, but he's 60-40. But he said afterwards, he thought that was just wrong. He thought he was a much bigger favorite. And, you only get to play one match, but in that match, at least it seems to be somewhat correct, right? It's a lot of work for something where there is two results. There is the expected result where you win, or then there is some kind of, disaster that's quite unlikely. And why would you spend your whole life doing that? I mean, he's actually done it a number of times and quite successfully. Well, now he can play tournaments and do things he finds interesting. And I mean, let's say with freestyle, this Karlsruhe event he won with 9 out of 9. In my opinion, it's a much better way of showing how big a talent, how strong a player you are, because that's an exceptional result. Well, winning a world championship match, of course, is an incredible performance. But if you're the best chess player in the world, it's not particularly, it's just an expected result in a way. So he wanted to try something different, and it was clear it was a decision over time. But of course, you asked me if I missed it. I said, of course I missed it. And of course he must be missing some of the things, right? I mean, when a world championship match happens, I would assume he's still following it. And when you're following it, I guess you also think that, I had some good memories. That could actually be me. And I could play better than these guys, right? So, but I assume that he's a rational person who's decided on balance he's not going to do it. But then, of course, you can also take Fischer-Spassky. I mean, at some point, if you make bad decisions, you might run out of money. But hopefully he will not get to that stage, right? So, but I think just historically speaking, saying you will never return will sound stupid because people has actually done that, right?
I exactly wanted to extend this Fischer-Spassky analogy that they were offered a crazy amount of money. In modern prices, it was like dozens of times more than the prize fund of the current World Chess Championship matches. And I think that people would obviously love to see Magnus return to such a match. And could there be a probability that if he is offered like an extremely incentivizing reward, he has the stimulus to return?
I mean, well, you ask him, but I'm not, I'm his second, not his manager in a way. But again, you can point to history, of course. I mean, yeah, I would assume that an absurd amount of money would be quite motivating. But, well, the problem with having such discussion is then you're going to say that Magnus rejected his title because of lack of money, which is not the truth. It's a lifestyle choice. So it's a slippery slope. But I think that goes for most things in life, that if you are offered an absurd life-changing amount of money, you might start doing something else. I mean, that probably goes for most people who are not Elon Musk, right? That, you have some kind of financial breaking point, but logically, most times you never get to that stage, right? I'm sure Magnus will take now and then jobs where he thinks, I don't really like spending time on this, but it's quite well paid. So let me spend a day on my life on that. And then I can use the money for something I care about. That isn't that how it works for most people, I would assume, right?
Yeah, sounds logical. When I announced that you will be coming on the podcast, obviously there were lots of comments from my audience asking me to ask you about politics. And you're wearing a Ukraine t-shirt, and obviously you are a vocal activist in some political areas, which I respect. I also should preface this part of our conversation by saying, for the audience, for those who don't know who I am, that I am actually Russian, but I had to leave my country because I publicly opposed Putin and the war. And in the early days of the Ukraine invasion, I left Russia and never returned since. But obviously, like, I have, maybe some would say, a conflict of interest, so I need to say to divulge this. But currently, I live in Kazakhstan, and I wanted to speak about your political stance because, obviously, lots of audience asked about this, but this is also something that interests me. And first question is about your position on the exclusion of Russians from international team events. You seem to be quite definite in saying that you don't believe that Russian teams should be allowed to compete in team events, even under the FIDE flag. Mm-hmm. Is it right?
That's very correct. Yes, that is my opinion. That's I would say in the chess world, it's seen as a controversial opinion, but this is the current position of, let's say, the IOC, who is not allowing Russian teams into the upcoming Winter Olympics. So they have confirmed that this is the IOC point of view. They say that while athletes by themselves can be neutral, we can argue about that, but that is the IOC point of view. They say a team cannot be neutral. A team is representing something. It's chosen by a certain geographical area. They are representing something. So a team can, by definition, not be neutral. But, also, I think 1 week ago, maybe 30 countries, including the country I live in, the country I'm a citizen, so both Lithuania and Denmark signed, but a lot of countries signed that we strongly urge that Russian teams are not brought back. So while in the chess world, I feel like I'm an outsider standing there screaming, if I go down on the street in both Denmark or Lithuania where I live, I'm considered a normal person. And I've been doing interviews in Lithuania about it, and I say that I'm sorry for my extreme views. And they said, no, your views are not extreme here. They are completely mainstream. So it's an interesting subject to talk about. But it's, for sure, I think that IOC sanctions against Russian teams are reasonable. They are necessary. And I think that the chess world should also implement them. This I fully stand by.
When we are speaking, I think just 1 day ago, the women's team championship started, where Russia is represented, under the FIDE flag by a women's team. And you tweeted a lot about that. And I think that there was this condition in the decision of the FIDE General Assembly that Russian, FIDE, female team can participate subject to letter of non-refusal or something like that by the non-objection
by the IOC.
By the IOC, and everybody is debating now whether this letter exists or not.
The letter exists in the way that Dvorkovich has written to the IOC if they can allow the women's team in, and the IOC has replied that, our executive boards has a certain recommendations, which, is that they don't play, but they say that the federations can implement the board's recommendations in the way they choose. And on sort of this matter towards chess, the IOC states that they have no position. And then, it becomes a question. Does no position means no objection? A letter of, no objection is a generally legal binding document where you cannot, it's like if I had signed, I cannot sue you for something happening in this program. I cannot come the next day and sue you. And I think, well, in my opinion, what the FIDE Council has said is that we need a letter like that, while what the IOC has given is basically a letter is, please stop bothering with this. We have no position on this. We are reserving our right to have this position or that position. But I think what they are saying is, you're not an Olympic sport, so could you please stop bothering in a way. But this is used by FIDE to say that we ask IOC, and they didn't stop us from doing it. And that is also correct in a way. I mean, my main point is that, I mean, let's say FIDE would like to ban the Russian team. What FIDE would say is that we are following IOC recommendations because we can look at this webpage, we can look at current statements. IOC is recommending not to do it. But FIDE would like to do the opposite to, get the Russian team back. So they are trying not to quote these things and to trying to sort of walk as thin a line as possible. In my opinion, they are crossing the line, and I think they are wrong. But, that is the current argument. And of course, the FIDE lawyer is Russian, is Mr. Martinov. And so is the FIDE press secretary, and so is the FIDE president. So they are sort of control of these things.
Mm-hmm. Let me get this straight. So you think that the IOC is a somewhat reliable source for decision making in this aspect? So if they, for example, say that no longer sanctions are necessary, it will change something or not? Or do you believe that it's not relevant?
I can like it or not, but the IOC is the world sporting body. I mean, I probably disagree with them in quite some matters, but that's not the subject here. I mean, the argument is that chess is a part of IOC, and especially FIDE is all the time saying we are following IOC recommendations, which is very much a stretch. I think the relevance of IOC is mainly that they are the world's sporting body. And what chess federations, national federations, is mainly afraid of is that they don't want to sort of annoy the IOC to the extent where IOC would react. Because what national federations are mainly afraid of is that if chess gets kicked out by the IOC, they will suddenly start losing a lot of funding. I mean, this you saw at the 2024 General Assembly. I mean, there, the Russian Chess Federation was trying to bring back Russian teams, but especially Malcolm Payne from England was trying to fight that. And he was fighting it successfully by pushing federations to believe that if we do this, it will have consequences from IOC. This is not just unthinkable. It actually happened in boxing. I mean, boxing used to be led by Umar Kremlev, another Russian citizen, more like a oligarch-style person, although it's an unofficial title, right? But the IOC actually has kicked out boxing from sort of the boxing federation from the IOC and replaced it with another federation led by a Dutch person. And that, of course, would be the nightmare scenario for Dvorkovich and also for some, let's say, federations, because they will lose a lot of state funding. So while I think national federations generally wants to do what the FIDE leadership says, it has to be balanced by not getting kicked from above, which is the IOC. So that is kind of the dynamics. And I think that's the relevance of the IOC. And you can see also that, I mean, FIDE they're not afraid of their delegates, right? I mean, the delegates voted in 2014 that Russian teams should not be let fully back, but they are anyway. What they are afraid of is that the IOC will come and do something to them. And that will mean not that it will just annoy the delegates, but it will have real consequences in terms of chess being kicked out of National Sporting Federation, loss of funds, and that will have a massive implication. So what Dvorkovich is balancing is trying to let Russia as much back as possible, but without angering IOC to the extent where it has consequences from chess. So you can see they send letters to the IOC and ask, can we please be allowed to bring back the Russian team? And when they say, well, you can do what you want, it's not our responsibility, they will argue, you can see the IOC is saying it's okay, and we will say, oh, that's not exactly what they're writing. But that's more or less the battle points, tried to be described by me as neutral as I can be, which is probably impossible for me, right?
Yeah, it's impossible to be neutral in these matters. So why I was asking about the IOC is because I don't understand the criteria. In which case should a country's team be banned from participating in international sporting events such as chess events, and in which case should it not be? For example, there is currently genocide in Sudan. Should the IOC or FIDE ban the Sudanese team? I'm not sure if their political regime is conducting it. Maybe correct me in the comments, but I heard something like that. So we can take many armed conflicts. Currently, of course, the Israel versus Palestine conflict is the one that was mentioned most in the comments when I announced the podcast.
I'm aware of that, yes.
Yeah, so what for you should be the criteria and who should decide? Because obviously there are some conflicts when people believe absolutely that one side is in the wrong, but people can be wrong also, right? People can be misled.
Well, such decisions are made by the IOC, right? And has been done that historically. Or, I mean, well, I'm Danish. We actually won the European Football Championship in '92. It's a amazing experience in Danish history, but of course comes from a tragedy that there was a horrific war in Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia was expelled from the tournament a few weeks before. I've actually forgotten if it was based on a UN or UEFA decision, but such things has happened. It's not like that wars in general leads to exclusion, right? I mean, well, you left Russia in 2022 when there was a full-scale invasion, but it was not like Russia didn't invade Ukraine in 2014. It's not criticism of you. I'm just explaining the facts, or that, Russia invaded Georgia in 2008. So the norm is that it doesn't have sporting implications, that you are part of a war, even if it's an illegal war. But at sometimes you will make exceptions, Yugoslavia being one example, right? So to disqualify Russia was an IOC decision, which they have full discretion to do, as far as I understand. I mean, IOC is an independent body who can more or less do whatever they want. Of course, they are bound by laws of society, to a certain extent, but this is an IOC decision. I understand that people are trying to get my opinion on other conflicts in terms of chess, but in chess, at least, this is the obvious thing that matters, partly because, or mainly because this is the IOC decision, but also because, well, Russia is a huge part of the chess world, and so is their government. You ask me for Sudan. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Sudan has very little connection to chess, and their government has absolutely no connection to chess, right? So I don't think that is comparable. And the same with the Israel-Palestina conflict. IOC has chosen not to implement any kind of sanctions, and chess is part of IOC. So we have decision goes in that direction. Of course, you can push for this, which some do, and I know that both IOC and FIFA has discussed these kind of things with sanctions towards Israel, for instance, but this has not been implemented. So, I mean, this is not personal sort of ideas and sanctions just coming from me. It's things that the IOC has decided. But I'm arguing that in the world of chess, of course, we are in a very special situation, because I think it's obvious that the Chess Federation of Russia is extremely connected to the leadership of the Kremlin. And also, I mean, I have been a second for all these World Championship matches. It actually meant that you get to meet some of these persons as sponsors or things. I mean, for instance, Dmitry Peskov, Putin's spokesperson, he's now a very well-known figure, but in the 2016 World Championship match, he was part of Kayakin's delegation. I mean, I didn't know who he was at the time. It was my wife who said, "Oh, Peskov is there." And I said, "Who is that?" But I realized that, well, the Norwegian team, we are sitting in one room, preparing Magnus for the playoff and talking. And in the room 2 meters next to me is Peskov with Filatov and the Russian guys following their games. So, I mean, they are very closely too, both in terms of, financing it, but also their general interests. So Russia, the Kremlin, and chess is very connected, and it's reasonable to focus on them. If the IOC wants to have sanctions against Israel, well, we will have to adapt to that. Or you can also raise it in terms of chess if you want to. Well, just to mention to all these guys who says I have never said anything on this conflict. I'm probably the only person who pointed out that on the recent World Teams Championships was played in occupied parts of Jerusalem, and that according to the law was not correct, but no one seemed to care. But I mean, it's not true that I have never stated anything in terms of FIDE on that, but it doesn't change my main point. When we talk about chess, Russia is the main factor because, the Kremlin's influence of especially Russian chess, but also FIDE is obvious and has basically not been disputed until it became sort of uncomfortable not disputing it in a way.
First of all, I definitely will not argue that Kremlin uses sports, including chess, or at least tries using chess for political reasons. But also that doesn't make it obvious to me that we should ban and that we should continue banning athletes who not necessarily support the war. Mostly, like most of Russian chess players, prominent chess players I've spoken to, have even those who remained in Russia, have opposed the war, maybe not all of them publicly, but some of them even publicly, signing letters against it. And for me, it's like the question, I don't have a rock solid position on this, but I understand why people want to inflict some sanctions. But it's not obvious, like, should it be forever if this conflict lasts like the Israel versus Palestine, like 50 more years? Should Russian teams be excluded for all this time? Who should be the judge in when it is a good enough moment to stop this? Should the whole chess industry of one of the most important regions for the chess history suffer gravely because of that? So there are enough already horrible things because of this war. I'm not sure if killing Russian chess will make it better. What's your position on this?
It's not a discussion that is unique for chess, right? I mean, you will also see arguments between, let's say, Russian opposition to Putin, who will argue that it's important that we don't kill off visas to, let's say, the whole of Europe for all Russian citizens, while others will say, no, this is extremely important in a way. And, the Russian opposition to Putin would make this argument that we should punish people individually, not as a collective in a way. And that is somewhat similar to what you see in chess, right? You will argue that, these guys are chess players, are not responsible for the war, so why should we sanction them? I will say my general point is to sanction somebody is not the same as a criminal court case. You are doing sanctions in order to prevent a country from waging war or from waging war efficiently. And that is a priority compared to individual needs quite often. That is just how it is. And if your government chooses to do some things, it might have consequences. To what Russian players, I will say that they are members of the Chess Federation of Russia, who is extremely privileged, both politically and financially, due to connections from the Kremlin and due to sponsors who are massively profiting from the war. And that also goes on an individual level. I mean, we can take Nepomniachtchi. I'm sure he's against the war and has also stated so, but he is still sponsored by, let's say, Potanin, who is a close friend of Putin and who has made tremendous money on the war and who is sanctioned, left, right, and center, right? And Nepomniachtchi's chess school is playing against teams from occupied Ukrainian territories, which is illegal due to FIDE rules. So it becomes a difficult situation. You are against the war, you have said certain things, but you also do certain other things. Perhaps that's a necessity for you. But I think that's a slippery slope to go down, and I generally support the idea of that. It seems for me necessary to have, not any judging sports persons on necessarily an individual basis, but on a more general thing. Or you can do like the IOC, who actually says, okay, you can be neutral, but under very strict criteria. The problem is that it seems impossible to have this kind of criteria. I mean, you can see Ukrainian press is regularly posting pictures of Russian sports persons who basically, takes pictures with Putin, but still are considered neutral. What do we do in chess, right? I mean, take Gunina. She takes pictures with Russian military in uniform, but FIDE still considers her neutral. Where is the border? I mean, it's very difficult to have these kind of things. And if you're not capable of implementing it, it mainly becomes some kind of shield. And I would say that, let's say the Russian chess players, they are clearly treated as neutral athletes when they are in Spain. The Spanish Chess Federation and the Spanish state say they are not Russians, they are neutrals. But when they come back, they are clearly Russian players. They are celebrated there. They are supported by the Russian Chess Federation. We saw the Russian team who won the under-16 chess Olympiad in Colombia recently, right? When they're in Colombia, they are strictly a FIDE neutral team. But then they go outside the playing area and take pictures in their Russian Chess Federation uniform. When they go home, they are met by Russian press and the Russian Chess Federation with Russian flags, and they have put pictures of them in the Russian metro where they are celebrated. So it's very difficult to implement this kind of neutrality. And then it mainly becomes a tool that allows the Spanish Chess Federation and us in the West to say, we are not seeing them as Russians, they are neutral. But they are used for propaganda internally. Then, of course, you can ask, why is propaganda internally our problem? But I think it is because, well, it has danger if the Russian population thinks that, yeah, our people, they can travel all over the world. They can be tourists in Italy. They can play chess tournaments in Colombia. It doesn't have consequences that our country is regularly firing rockets towards Ukrainian civilians. I mean, while we speak, this morning, a 17-year-old Ukrainian athlete, I forget in kickboxing, was killed, right? So, I mean, also, IOC is having an argument there should be equality in sports. But there is no equality if Ukrainian athletes are being killed and their chess clubs bombed, right? So that is why, on balance, I support the IOC stance from 2022 with sanctions on both individuals and teams. And now I think they have loosened it too much, but I definitely support their stance on teams. I think that having a Russian team playing right now in Spain is a wrong signal to send to the Russian population. It sends the signal that our government, our army can bump civilians without consequences, and that athletes who are actually, sponsored by Simanovsky, who is a massive war supporter, can play in Spain without any kind of consequences. That is wrong, and that is dangerous, and that is why I have the opinions I have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing your opinion. I don't think that these sanctions are effective even in the slightest for stopping killing Ukrainian civilians, unfortunately. And I didn't they even on the contrary strengthen the propaganda of Russian regime that says that we are ostracized because we are surrounded by enemies, we are being treated unfairly, unjustly, look at this. And unfortunately, I understand that most likely all the sanctions initially started out as a thing done with benevolent intentions, but as is often in bureaucracy, whatever national, international, it's not always working out as intended. So that's my problem with the sanctions. And you also demonstrated this with the FIDE flag. I also don't think that this helps, Russians play under FIDE flag or under Russian flag. Everybody still understands that they are Russians. So I agree with you.
I would just add quickly that, your position, as far as I understand it, is similar to many in the Russian opposition who are against Putin, but they think that this is counterproductive, while others would say that, should we have a blanket ban on all Russian visas? And you can argue if this is productive or not. And I see this as somewhat similar in a way.
Yeah.
There will also be Russian opposition like Kasparov who wants to be as harsh as possible. And then you will see, for instance, the Navalny flank of the opposition who will, of course, Navalny is dead, but those who are taking over for him would say the opposite. And I'm aware that is a big discussion, and I think it's reasonable we can disagree on that. Yeah, you think that, I think the others. And that sanctions are not effective, I fully agree with. I'm working for making the sanctions harder. Your point could be that, well, the sanctions is not working, and then they become a joke. And I generally agree that it is a joke, right? I mean, well, we have a neutral team playing under the FIDE flag, but I mean, that is just, it doesn't reflect reality. That much we can agree on, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It becomes...
I agree in that. Yeah. But yeah, just to finish, I think you used the words slippery slope. I think it's a slippery slope for some international bureaucracies to decide which countries to sanction and which not to sanction, because maybe some of them, maybe the IOC now is run by the good guys. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I would not trust any like such organizations automatically. And yes, and about the sanctions, unfortunately, you can ban Russian teams in all sports, but that will not stop the war. If you stop buying oil and gas from Putin, European countries, then maybe this will put some pressure on him, but not banning chess players. Definitely, he doesn't care about chess.
I live in Lithuania. We are not buying any gas from Russia. But on that subject, I would say that there is a very famous debate in Davos in 2012, where the Russian representative was trying to tell, I forgot which year it was, but was trying to tell the Lithuanian president that, how are you going to explain to your population that you can buy cheaper Russian gas, but you choose something else? And she says there is a reason we call our gas terminal independence while buying from the States. But the reason I tell the story is the Russian representative arguing with her was Dvorkovich. So, I mean, he is famous in Lithuania, but not for chess. I mean, I agree we should stop buying gas, and that would be great. And, well, I'm supporting that. But again, to give Dvorkovich's role, during the FIDE assembly, he actually left the assembly in Budapest because he had something more important to do. He had to speak with the Hungarian foreign minister, Mr. Szijjártó, who cares tremendously about Hungary and gas. So I'm trying to hint that I think Dvorkovich is not only doing chess these days. But again, well, let's see if you get sued for that comment. But well, it's probably me who gets sued. But
Okay. Now,
yeah, never mind. Yeah.
Now we can top it off as usual, as a tradition of our podcast, with a Blitz game. The viewers, most of them will know, but for those of you guys who don't know, Peter has reached 2700 in classical chess
for 2 weeks, but yes.
Yeah, so he's not not only a very accomplished coach, but also an accomplished player. So will you give me 1 versus 5 timeouts, as most of my guests
we can do that, but you should know that I can literally not remember the last time I played a game of chess or a game of Blitz. I don't play chess anymore. I can tell you when I played golf or when I played Japanese chess, but
Shogi.
The last time I played Blitz, Shogi, that I play like once or twice a week. I play a Blitz game there. I'm willing to play with 1 minute if you feel like it. I cannot rule out that I'm going to lose on time because I'm physically not capable of making the moves quickly in a way. So I don't know, but we can try. I mean, I will try my best, but I'm just making a disclaimer that it could end up a bit ridiculous. But let's see.
Let's see. Okay. You can add time to my clock. It's next to abort, to the right of the abort button.
I'm trying to give you as much time as possible.
Okay, and we can start. Sometimes it doesn't work. You can add later, probably. Yeah. Okay. 6. Because my time cannot exceed 1 minute, maybe because of this. It's not ideally working like this.
Am I lost already? Oh, you don't want me to disturb you, right? No.
I forgot about that line. Okay. Okay, let's go.
Oh, sorry, I was just busy giving you extra time.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Stuff it.
Not good.
My position is nice, yeah. Ooh, whoa. Okay. What is this? One. No.
Craziness. Okay.
What was that?
Okay. Oh, okay. I blundered very stupidly.
Yeah, that was helpful. Thanks a lot.
That was quick.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but
Yeah.
I mean, you made me happy, so that's good.
Yeah, but I got a horrible position out of the opening. I forgot that e5 is not the move.
Well, that's that skill I still have. I assume that what you did is probably not, I mean, good, but you were somewhat distracted at that point, right?
Yeah, I can have excuses, but still, e5 is a bad move.
Yeah. No.
Bishop
I
e3.
understand,
Bishop e3.
but,
The problem is that I know the theory, so I just somehow improvised. So bishop e3 is, of course, the move. And after e5, somehow I tried wiggling my way out of the position, and then it was equal. And then after f4, it was not that bad. Bishop c4. Yeah, just castling was a mistake. I should have taken on d6.
Probably. Yeah. No, I mean, well, the problem is also I can see that I start thinking about the chess position, and then I realize at some point I'm playing bullet chess. That's not how it's done, right? But you're playing 2 knight c3 generally, followed by d4.
Yeah. I like the Magnus Sicilian, for example, against d6. Against g6 also is good.
Exactly, he was doing that. I mean, this was a funny story. It was some Greek guy, which I am embarrassing and now has forgotten his name, so that's a little bit rude. But he was sending me emails telling me, knight c3 followed by d4 is actually quite great. And I thought, okay, the guy is crazy, but he actually wasn't. And I looked at him and I thought, okay, this is cool.
He beat Wojtaszek, I think.
If anything,
right? With that first game.
Sorry?
And Magnus beat Wojtaszek first using this.
He beat Wojtaszek, yes, and quite successfully. And it's one of these things that, because of my, let's say, classical chess upbringing, you're very skeptical. And it actually turns out to be better than I thought. It's a very respectable system, and nowadays we will start considering it quite logical. At that point, I thought, okay, it's a funny system. It will work just for one game, and I mean, well, Wojtaszek is like me. He's a colleague from Vishy times. He's extremely good in openings, but of course Magnus is better than him in practical skills. So we thought surprising him would work great, which it did in a way. But sometimes when Magnus does something stupid, it actually turns out to be quite good, and it gets copied, right? But I mean, generally, I want to praise this Greek guy, because I mean, he was quite insisting that I should take this seriously, and I finally half did, and it worked out well for us, and it's become a system that you are now copying, right? So it's I mean, this is fun things to have been part of, and also I think it's a very good example of how chess understanding has evolved, because earlier we would not play like this because it looks wrong, but that is just because, I mean, we were too obsessed with things being logical and easy to explain, while, but I mean, I'm pretty sure this is somewhat neural network based, that they would think that, no, you don't have to play chess in your old fashioned way. You can do it like this. And this is, is quite cool. Anyway, you can see if I will take any opportunities to start talking about chess openings. I'm sorry.
That's fascinating to hear your thoughts on this, and thank you very much for your insights, Peter. Good luck to you and Magnus.
Thanks for letting me win a game of chess.
Yeah, maybe you will play some Blitz now online and get addicted. It's dangerous. Okay, guys, don't forget to comment. Please write down your opinion on the topics that we discussed, on the chess part, on the political part, on the game and how horribly I played. Everything is much appreciated. I love reading your comments. And thanks, Peter. I wish you and Magnus a long-standing continuation of your cooperation. I'm sure you can do lots of great things together before you take on a new Padawan, so to say.
Thanks a lot. It's been an honor and entertaining and also useful to be part of your podcast. So thanks a lot for inviting me. Please keep up your good work.
Okay, guys, don't forget to hit the like button and smash the subscribe button. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.